Which brings us to the number one issue. That, of course, is always cost of living. Has been for the best part of 3 years. For those who remember the ups and downs of the 2022 election campaign that brought this government to power, it was all about cost of living. Remember the promise that a Labor government would lower the cost of living. This was their promise the best part of 3 years ago, and of course they have failed on every measure. Everything in the supermarket costs more than before they came to office. Your power bills are worth way more, despite the fact that they promised that it would be fixed by now and we'd be making our way towards $275 off, not a one-off, totally off your power bills. The cost of insurance and petrol has gone up by huge amounts since they came to power, not to mention 12 interest rate rises, which have made it so impossible for people to hold on to properties, and they've had to cut back in any number of areas. Don't forget, this is also the government that, while all of that was happening, decided to increase taxes on 10 million people. Before they came to power, you could get an automatic $1,500 tax return, and more than 35% of Australians rely upon their tax return to be able to pay some of the big bills that they have accrued in the previous year. Remember, $1,500 gone. This government made that decision. But apparently the Labor Party has worked out who to blame for everything that has gone wrong on their watch, despite promising for everything to get better on their watch. Peter Dutton. You may well have heard today that, again, there is about to be a new scare campaign, ooga booga music, black and white photos, with the suggestion that you'll be worse off under Dutton. Now, this is their sort of cleverer version of it won't be easy under Albanese, but the reality was that that claim was correct in 2022. And then pretending that if you vote for Dutton, then a whole series of things are going to increase, while supermarkets, food, power bills, cars, petrol, insurance, and paying off a house or renting one is way more than it was since they came to power, then this is a pretty wild swing they're going to take. While simultaneously distracting you that despite the fact that climate change is not the top order political issue, in the most recent American election, remember, less than 3% of people said that it was their number one issue. I know that plenty of people will say that it should always remain the top issue, but it just isn't. It just isn't for people right now, especially when we're 1% of the world's problem, China's 33% of the world's problem, and their solution is, we should have a big talk fest in this country that the Prime Minister has deemed not important enough to attend this year or last year. He went the year before because, of course, he wasn't Scott Morrison. But there is also a new way that people are already starting to explain the economy that should be better by now, about why it isn't, and if it gets worse, it's definitely not their responsibility. Multiple news organisations this week have been running the scare campaign that Donald Trump is the reason why your home loan, which has gone up by thousands of dollars, 12 interest rate rises, could still stay high. The reason that everything in the shops will still stay high, it's all going to be Trump's fault. What a convenient little excuse. Now, remember, this government has also said that war in the Middle East was a reason why inflation was high. But, of course, war in the Middle East, if that was the case, would explain why America's inflation is lower than ours, the UK's is lower than ours. No, of course not. It's all just about changing the subject. This government, on every front, every time, finds someone else to blame. There is a point in time when the Australian public will just not buy it. And while the big caveat that I always say about this not being a one-term government is about how many of the Teals will hold on to their seats. If this was a normal election, then yeah, you probably would be talking about a one-term government. The number one issue Australians believe this government has not done enough action on. The press gallery doesn't want to talk about their decision to increase taxes by $1,500 on 10 million workers. They think that if there's one interest rate reduction, somehow that will make you forget about the 12 ones that went up before one comes ever so slightly down. Just like the American population didn't care when they were being told that everything is awesome because here's a number coming out of Washington, I'm not sure that people are going to feel the same and not going to feel any different in this country when they keep being told by people in Canberra that everything is awesome and everything is better.